I remember that day clearly. The sun was shining through the kitchen window, casting golden streaks across the marble countertop. I was standing there, smoothing down the edges of my favorite sari, the one with the small embroidered flowers along the border. My son had called me that morning, his voice warm and inviting. "Ma, come over for lunch. It's been too long." Too long. He was right. It had been nearly 3 weeks since I'd seen him. 3 weeks since I'd hugged him, since I'd sat across from him at the table and watched him eat the way he used to when he was a boy, quickly, hungrily, like the world might take his plate away if he didn't finish fast enough. I missed him, so I said yes. Of course I said yes. I arrived at their house a little after noon, carrying a small bag of homemade sweets, coconut laddus, his favorite. I knocked gently, my heart fluttering with that strange mix of excitement and nervousness I'd grown used to feeling whenever I visited. She opened the door. My daughter-in-law. Her expression was neutral. Not warm, not cold. Just flat, like she was opening the door for a delivery person, not her husband's mother. "Oh, you're here," she said, stepping aside without a smile. "Yes, Beta," I replied softly, holding up the bag. "I made something for everyone." She glanced at the bag, then back at me. "You didn't have to. It wasn't a thank you. It was a dismissal." But I smiled anyway. I always smiled. Inside, the house smelled like spices and fried onions. My son was in the living room, talking on the phone, pacing back and forth the way he always did when he was focused. When he saw me, his face brightened. "Ma!" He ended the call quickly and came over, wrapping me in a hug that felt too brief. "I'm so glad you came." "Of course, Beta. I wouldn't miss it." He kissed my forehead, then turned toward the kitchen. "Priya, Ma's here." "I know," came her voice from the other room. Flat again, detached. I felt a small prick in my chest, but I pushed it down. Maybe she was just busy. Maybe she was tired. I told myself these things because I needed to believe them. Lunch was served shortly after. We sat around the dining table, my son, his wife, and me. The food was good, but the conversation felt strained, like we were all reading from scripts we hadn't rehearsed properly. I tried to fill the silence. "This chicken is delicious, Priya. You've really perfected this recipe." She didn't look up. "Thanks." My son smiled at me, but there was something sad in his eyes. Something apologetic. I wanted to reach across the table and hold his hand, tell him it was okay, that I understood. But I didn't. I just kept eating, kept smiling, kept pretending everything was fine. Because that's what mothers do. We swallow our pain so our children don't have to taste it. I wasn't always like this. Quiet, careful, walking on eggshells in my own son's home. There was a time when I was bold, confident, a time when I believed love was simple, that family was sacred, that respect was a given. I raised my son alone. His father passed away when he was only 7 years old. A sudden heart attack in the middle of the night. One moment he was there, breathing beside me, and the next, he was gone. I was 29, a widow with a young boy and no idea how I was going to survive. But I did. I worked 2 jobs, one at a school during the day, one at a garment factory in the evenings. I cooked before dawn, cleaned after midnight. I saved every rupee I could, denied myself everything I wanted so my son could have everything he needed. Education, good food, clean clothes, a future. And he grew up beautifully. He was kind, intelligent, hardworking. He respected me, loved me deeply, made me proud every single day. When he got his first job, he bought me a gold chain with his first paycheck. I cried so much that day I thought my heart would burst. "You deserve the world, Ma," he'd said, clasping it around my neck. I wore that chain every day. When he told me he was getting married, I was overjoyed. I thought I was gaining a daughter, someone to share my life with, someone to love the way I loved my son. I met Priya before the wedding. She was beautiful, tall, fair, modern. She wore Western clothes confidently, spoke English fluently, and worked in a corporate office. Everything about her seemed polished, successful. I admired her. I tried so hard to connect with her. I asked her about her work, her hobbies, her dreams. I told her how happy I was to have her in our family. I even offered to help with the wedding preparations, to cook for the guests, to do whatever was needed. She smiled politely, but there was a distance in her eyes. a coolness I couldn't quite place. "Thank you, Auntie," she'd say. "But we've hired professionals for everything. You don't need to worry. Auntie. Not Ma. Not even Mom. Just Auntie." I told myself it didn't matter. That she would warm up to me eventually. That love takes time. But after the wedding, things didn't get better. They got worse. The first few months were subtle. Little comments here and there. Small gestures that seemed harmless on the surface but carried weight underneath. Like when I suggested a family recipe for a dinner party they were hosting. "That's very traditional," Priya said with a tight smile. "But I think we'll go with something more modern." Or when I offered to babysit once they started talking about having children. "We'll probably hire a nanny," she replied, not looking at me. Someone trained. As if I hadn't raised a child. As if I hadn't sacrificed everything to give my son the life he had. But I stayed quiet. I told myself I was being sensitive. That she didn't mean it the way it sounded. That I needed to adjust to the new dynamics of our family. My son noticed sometimes. "Ma, you okay?" he'd ask when we were alone. "Of course, Beta. I'm fine." I lied because I didn't want to put him in the middle. Because I didn't want to be the mother-in-law who caused problems. Because I loved him too much to make him choose. So I swallowed it. Again and again and again. But then came that dinner. The one that changed everything. It was a Saturday evening, and my son had invited a few friends and relatives over, his college friends, a couple of cousins, and Priya's parents. I was invited too, though I could tell Priya wasn't thrilled about it. I arrived early to help, even though I knew she wouldn't ask me to. I brought flowers, a dessert I'd made, and a small gift for her parents. "Hi, Auntie," she said when I walked in, her tone clipped. "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wanted to," I said softly. She took the items without a word and disappeared into the kitchen. The evening started pleasantly enough. Guests arrived. Laughter filled the room, drinks were poured. I sat quietly in the corner, smiling, observing, happy just to be included. My son kept checking on me. "Ma, you need anything? Water? Snacks?" "I'm fine, Beta. Enjoy your friends." I meant it. I was fine. Or at least I thought I was. Then came the moment that shattered me. Priya was talking to her mother and a few guests near the dining table. I was sitting a few feet away, holding my phone. I'd been taking a few pictures earlier, candid shots of my son laughing, of the beautiful setup Priya had arranged. I loved capturing these moments, saving them in my gallery like tiny pieces of happiness I could revisit. I didn't realize the recording app was still open. I had accidentally started a voice recording earlier when I was trying to take a photo, and I didn't notice it was still running, tucked in my purse on the side table. Priya's voice carried across the room. "Honestly, I don't know why she insists on coming to everything," she said, loud enough for the group to hear but not quite loud enough for me. "It's exhausting." Her mother laughed. "Well, that's what happens with traditional families." "And that's sorry," Priya continued, her tone dripping with mockery. "Who even wears those anymore? It's like she's stuck in the 1980s. The group laughed. My heart stopped. I looked down at my sari, the one with the small embroidered flowers. The one I'd worn because I thought it was elegant, because I thought it made me look respectful. "She's so simple," Priya went on. "No style, no awareness. I mean, I love my husband, but his mother, she's just old-fashioned. Backward. The word hit me like a slap. I sat frozen, my hands trembling in my lap. No one was looking at me. No one noticed the tears stinging my eyes. My son was in the other room, laughing with his friends, completely unaware. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her how much I had sacrificed, how hard I had worked, how much I loved her husband. But I didn't. I just sat there, silent, invisible, and that recording kept running. I left early that night. I told my son I wasn't feeling well, that I needed to rest. He looked concerned, but Priya barely glanced up when I said goodbye. "Feel better, Auntie," she said absently, already turning back to her guests. I drove home in a daze, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I got home, I sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I felt empty, hollowed out. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do. I picked up my phone, intending to call a friend, maybe talk to someone, anyone. That's when I saw it. The recording app. Still running. 1 hour and 43 minutes. My finger hovered over the stop button. Then, slowly I pressed play. The first few minutes were just ambient noise, plates clattering, music playing softly in the background. Then I heard her voice. I don't know why she insists on coming to everything. I closed my eyes and listened. Every word, every laugh, every cruel comment. And when it was over, I sat in the silence of my bedroom, tears streaming down my face. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was awake. The days after that dinner were strange. I didn't cry as much as I thought I would. Instead, I felt numb. Like I was moving through water, everything muffled and distant. My son called me a few times. Ma, you sure you're okay? You seemed off that night. I'm fine, Beta. Just a little tired. You'd tell me if something was wrong, right? Of course. Another lie. But what was I supposed to say? That his wife hated me? That she mocked me in front of guests? That I had proof? No. I couldn't do that to him. Not yet. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started to distance myself. I stopped calling as often. Stopped asking to visit. When my son invited me over, I found polite excuses. I have a doctor's appointment. I'm not feeling well. Maybe next week. He sounded confused, maybe even a little hurt. But he didn't push. And Priya! She didn't seem to notice at all. I spent those weeks replaying that recording. Not because I wanted to hurt myself, but because I needed to understand. I needed to know if I had imagined the cruelty in her voice, if I had been too sensitive, too old-fashioned, too backward. But every time I listened, the truth became clearer. She didn't respect me. She never had, and my silence had only made it easier for her. So I started keeping more recordings, not intentionally at first. But whenever I visited, I'd leave my phone on the table, recording app open, volume low. And I listened later. I heard her complain about me to her friends on the phone. I heard her mock my cooking, my clothes, my opinions. I heard her tell my son I was too involved, too traditional, too much. And each time I saved the file. Not for revenge, but for truth. Because I knew, deep down, that one day the truth would matter. It was about 2 months later when things began to shift. My son started noticing my absence. Ma, why don't you come over anymore? I'm just busy, Beta. Busy with what? You're retired. He had a point. I'm just giving you both space. You're newlyweds. You don't need your mother hovering around. That's ridiculous. You're not hovering. I miss you. Those words nearly broke me. I miss you too. Then come over this weekend. Please. For me. I couldn't say no to him. So I went. The moment I walked into their house, I felt it. Tension. Priya was in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables. My son was on the couch, his expression tight. They'd been fighting. Hi, Ma, he said, standing up to hug me. Hi, Beta. I hugged him back, feeling how tense his body was. Priya didn't turn around. Hi, Priya, I said softly. Hi, she muttered. The afternoon was painful. Every conversation felt forced. Every silence felt heavy. At one point, Priya snapped at my son over something trivial. He'd forgotten to buy something from the store. You never listen, she said, her voice sharp. I just forgot. It's not a big deal. It is to me. I sat quietly, pretending to look at my phone, wishing I could disappear. Later, when Priya went to take a call in the other room, my son sat down next to me. Ma, he said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you not like Priya? The question caught me off guard. Why would you ask that? Because you never come over anymore. And when you do, you barely talk. Priya thinks you don't approve of her. My chest tightened. Beta, just tell me the truth, Ma. Please. I looked into his eyes. Those same eyes that used to look up at me when he was a boy, trusting, loving, needing me. And I realized he didn't know. He had no idea what his wife said about me, how she treated me, how she mocked me. He was blind to it, not because he didn't love me, but because he loved her too. And I couldn't put him in that position. Not yet. I do approve of her, Beta, I said softly. I want you both to have your own life. That's all. He looked relieved, but not convinced. Okay, he said. But Ma, you'll tell me if something's wrong, right? Of course. Another lie. But I wasn't ready for the truth. Not yet. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. There was another family gathering, this time at Priya's parents' house. A celebration for her father's retirement. My son insisted I come. Ma, you have to be there. Your family. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to stay home. But I went. Because he asked. The evening started the same way they always did. Polite greetings, forced smiles, surface-level conversations. I sat quietly in the corner, sipping tea, observing. Priya was in her element, laughing, entertaining, playing the perfect daughter, the perfect wife. And then it happened. One of Priya's aunts, a loud woman with too much jewelry and not enough tact, turned to me. So, Auntie, you live alone? Yes, I said politely. That must be so lonely. Don't you wish you could live with your son? Before I could answer, Priya's voice cut through the room. Oh, she prefers her independence, Priya said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Some people are just set in their ways. The aunt laughed. Well, that's modern thinking, I suppose. Exactly, Priya continued, her tone sweet but laced with venom. Besides, we have our own life. It's better this way. For everyone. The room went quiet for a moment. My son, sitting across the room, looked uncomfortable. But he didn't say anything. And neither did I. I just sat there, holding my teacup, feeling my heart crack a little more. Priya's mother chimed in, trying to lighten the mood. Well, every family is different. What matters is that everyone's happy. Exactly, Priya said, shooting me a quick glance. Everyone's happy. I excused myself shortly after. I told my son I had a headache, that I needed to leave. He walked me to the door, concern written all over his face. Ma, you sure you're okay? I'm fine, Beta. Just tired. He hugged me, and I held on a little longer than usual. Because I knew something had to change. That night, I sat in my living room and opened my phone. I had 17 recordings now. 17 pieces of evidence. 17 moments of cruelty I'd endured in silence. I listened to the most recent one, the conversation from that evening. Some people are just set in their ways. We have our own life. It's better this way. I closed my eyes. And for the first time, I felt something other than sadness. I felt clarity. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to lash out. But I wasn't going to stay silent forever either. Because silence, I realized, could be powerful when paired with truth. The next few weeks were different. I stopped pretending. I stopped making excuses. When my son called, I was honest. Ma, want to come over for dinner? No, Beta. I don't think so. Why not? Because I don't feel comfortable there. Silence. What do you mean? I don't feel welcome. And I'd rather not force myself into spaces where I'm not wanted. Ma, that's not true. You're always welcome. Am I? He didn't have an answer. Priya, on the other hand, seemed pleased. I heard through a mutual relative that she told someone. Finally, she's backing off. I thought she'd never get the hint. The hint. As if I were a pest. An inconvenience. My son grew quieter. More withdrawn. I could tell he was confused. Torn. But I didn't push. I just waited. Because I knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. My son showed up at my door unannounced. His eyes were red. Ma, we need to talk. I let him in. We sat at the kitchen table, and he stared at his hands for a long time before speaking. Priya and I were not doing well. My heart sank. What happened? I don't know. She's just different. Angry all the time. And she keeps saying things about you. About how you don't approve of her, how you're always judging her. I stayed quiet. And I'd offended you, Ma. I told her that's not true. But then she said you've been distant because you don't like her. That you've been trying to come between us. I felt my blood run cold. And do you believe that? He looked up at me, his eyes filled with pain. I don't know what to believe anymore. I took a deep breath. This was the moment. Beta, I said slowly. There's something I need to show you. I pulled out my phone. His brow furrowed. What is it? Just listen. I pressed play on the first recording. The one from that dinner. Priya's voice filled the room. I don't know why she insists on coming to everything. It's exhausting. And that's sorry. Who even wears those anymore? She's so simple. No style, no awareness. I watched my son's face change. Confusion. Disbelief. Pain. Ma, is this? It's real, I said quietly. From 2 months ago. I played another. And another. Each one more damning than the last. By the time I finished, my son was crying. Ma, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I know, Beta. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want to be the reason your marriage fell apart. He shook his head, his hands trembling. She said those things? About you? Yes. He stood up, pacing the kitchen, his face twisted in anguish. I can't believe this. I can't. How could she? I don't know, Beta. But I'm not telling you this to turn you against her. I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth. He stopped pacing and looked at me. What do I do, Ma? That's up to you. He left shortly after, his face pale, his movements mechanical. I didn't know what he would do. Part of me regretted showing him the recordings, but a bigger part of me felt free. The truth was out, and I didn't have to carry it alone anymore. 2 days later, I got a call. It was my son. Ma, can you come over? Please. His voice was strained. Of course. When I arrived, the house was silent. Priya was sitting on the couch, her face pale, her hands folded tightly in her lap. My son stood near the window, his arms crossed, his jaw clenched. Ma, he said quietly. Sit down. I sat. The air was thick with tension. I confronted her, my son said. I played the recordings. Priya's eyes darted to me, filled with something I couldn't quite place. Fear. Anger. Shame. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't respond. I didn't mean. I didn't realize. You didn't realize what? My son snapped. That you were humiliating my mother. That you were disrespecting the woman who raised me. Priya flinched. I was frustrated, she said weakly. I didn't mean for her to hear. That's not an apology, he said coldly. That's an excuse. Silence. I looked at Priya, really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see a villain. I saw a young woman who was scared, insecure, struggling with her own demons. That didn't excuse what she'd done, but it helped me understand. Priya, I said softly. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. I don't need you to like me. I don't even need you to respect me. But I need you to understand something. She nodded, unable to speak. I am not your enemy. I never was. I only ever wanted to be part of this family. Part of your life. But you made me feel like I didn't belong. Like I was a burden. I'm sorry, she whispered again. I know, I said. And I forgive you. My son's head snapped toward me. Ma. I forgive her, I repeated. Not because what she did was okay, but because holding on to this anger will only hurt me more. Priya sobbed openly now, her shoulders shaking. My son sat down beside her, his face a mixture of grief and resolve. But things have to change, he said firmly. This can't happen again. I know, Priya said. I promise. I'll do better. And slowly, painfully, she did. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments, still tension, but Priya started trying. She asked me for recipes. She called me Mom instead of Auntie. She invited me over, genuinely, without my son having to insist. And I let go, not of the memories, but of the bitterness, because I realized something in those months of pain. Silence had been my survival, but truth had been my freedom. Months later, I sat in their living room, watching my son and Priya laugh over something on TV. Priya caught my eye and smiled, a real smile, and I smiled back, because healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing peace over pain, dignity over revenge, and love even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I am a mother, and that will never change, but I am also a woman who knows her worth, who refuses to be silent when silence costs her soul, and that is my power.